What is going on, everyone? How about we talk about the state that probably has some of the most amazing desert landscapes in the country, Utah. I first went to Utah to hike back in the late 1980s and had no idea the desert could be so beautiful until that week. This was before everyone had a high-quality camera on their cell phones. Actually, to be honest with you, the only cell phones at the time didn't even text. You actually had to call people to communicate. Really, I'm not kidding. You had to dial a phone number and wait for someone to say hello. Mind-blowing, right? Anyway, the weekend after that trip, I bought my first quality camera. I think it was like $800 at the time. I was in the Army, so that was like a month's pay almost. That trip to Zion National Park, I think may have been the beginning of my obsession I have with learning and exploring the United States. Utah is a great state, there's no doubt about it. Salt Lake City is one of the nicest major cities in the country. The people are decent, it's clean, and the traffic isn't terrible. And stop typing. We all think where we live, the traffic is the worst. Salt Lake City isn't even in the worst 50 in the United States. Really, their traffic's not even a thing. After Salt Lake City, you have a handful of other great cities in the state, but once you get past that, there's a serious drop in quality places to live. And that's what today's list is all about, the worst places to live in Utah. So why don't you grab a virgin margarita or an uncaffeinated soda and watch my top 10 worst towns in Utah. Number 10. Carbonville, Utah. Carbonville only has 1,500 residents, with 25% of them living in poverty. The income per capita is about $20,000, which is 23% lower than the Utah average, and 33% lower than the national average. The unemployment rate here is sky high at 106% higher than the national average. Don't come to Carbonville without a job. You won't have an easy time finding one. And typical of Utah, it follows no statistical norms. Any place else in the country when you have poverty, you have crime. Not in Carbonville. Their crime rate is 52% lower than the national average. That's pretty much no crime. Unless, of course, you count having 4 radio stations in the immediate area, and 3 of them only play country as a crime, then yes, you have crime. Number 9. Mazur, Utah. Mazur has about 4,000 residents who are probably cold right now. Actually, they're very cold right now. As I look at the weather, Mazur is 20 degrees, and it's noon. Now, there's something weird about desert cold. You know, it's one thing to be cold in the mountains and the snow, and that's cold. But there's something really strange about being in desert cold. It's just gets to the bone. It's weird. The average temperature stays under freezing usually from November to February, warming up to about 72 degrees in the summer. That's it. This is definitely not the type of place to move to if you're looking for desert heat. Now, I'm thinking the local schools might not be heating the buildings during the winter. The average school test score in Mazur is almost 45% lower than the national average, according to AreaVibes.com. You know, it's hard to do those little bubble tests when you're shivering and the teeth of the whole class are chattering to the point where it sounds like something's humming. On top of all that, the home prices are that of a much nicer place. The average home price in Mazur is 30% higher than the national average. Number 8. Central Valley, Utah. Homes in Central Valley are a bit of a ripoff. Most of them are manufactured homes, which will typically be a little bit colder than normal homes. However, despite the homes being a less desirable kind of home, the prices are actually higher. In Central Valley, homes sell for about 25% higher than the national average, and rent is about 13% higher than the national average. And there is nothing here. You don't pay extra when there isn't something you're paying extra for, like the ocean or a lake. There's nothing here like that. This place doesn't even have a fast food restaurant. You gotta drive all the way out to Richfield for that kind of action. This is the type of place you move to when your kids get mixed up with the wrong crowd. You know, get them away from everything. I think my kids would have to get mixed up with Al-Qaeda before I'd move them here. Number 7. Enoch, Utah. Enoch is a very average town. I mean, other than the fact that it shares the name with Enoch, that weird loner sleestack from Land of the Lost. The town has just under 7,000 residents, with the per income being around $16,000 per year, which is 45% lower than the national average. Enoch is the type of place you move to when you want the freedom to park 12 or 13 broken down cars on your property. All the measurable stats in Enoch are below average, except for cost of living. And that's probably because there's nothing to spend your money on in Enoch. They have a pizza place and like 8 churches. That's it. Number 6. Tropic, Utah. They named this place Tropic, and it's anything but tropic. It's like false advertising. Maybe they're trying reverse psychology to get people to move here. I don't know. The town and its 700 residents should be expecting nothing more than freezing temperatures from November to May, with the weather letting up for summer with temperatures of about 65 degrees and never any higher than like 82. While they don't get very wet, it is cold. It's that desert cold like I talked about before. This is like the place you stop before you go to Bryce Canyon. It's like that last stop before you get to the park and and start hiking. The first time I went to Tropic was in 1989. There seemed to be about 20 buildings 20 years ago. 20 years later, in 2009, I went again, and I think there was 22 buildings. I'm sure there's some houses out there too, but that's pretty much what I saw. Things really don't happen fast in Tropic. The income per capita in Tropic is 38% lower than the national average, and the rest of their stats, they all blow. Number 5. Virgin, Utah. Don't move to Virgin expecting anything other than a small desert town. The name is very misleading. Don't move to Virgin expecting a good deal on a home either. Homes here go for about the Utah average of the mid 200s or even more. There is one home, however, currently on the market in Virgin for $130,000. It's got freshly boarded up windows and graffiti. I mean, boarded up windows and graffiti? And you're paying $130K? Come on, it's not like this is Virgin land. The median home price in Virgin is about 10% higher than the national average. This place is a glorified rest stop with a church and a place called the Virgin Workshop that I'm dying to learn more about. They don't have a website. Number 4. White Mesa, Utah. White Mesa is a very small town of only 100 residents. Most people driving along US 191 assume that this is a gas station in the middle of the desert, and then they pull over into the mobile station to fill up. And while the gas is flowing into their car, they take a second to look out into the desert, and then they see houses and say, holy crap, people actually live here. Most customers at the gas station are overtaken by the urge to go knock on a local's front door and ask them why. Why do you live here? What happened in your life that got you to this point? There isn't much to this town. Almost anything a resident needs, other than gas, microwave burrito, and a 44-ounce soda, they'd have to travel to Blanding for. Number 4. Kashiram, Utah. Kashiram only has around 250 residents, and if you watch this next month, it could be around 240. The home prices are in the mid-200s, which is average for Utah. However, when you take into consideration that the income per capita is only about $17,000 per year, it's not a good number. This used to be a big farming community. Now it's just kind of a farming community. They've lost a lot of farm. This is a nice little town that's losing population at a good pace. The biggest export in Kashiram is young people. They turn 18 and they flee this town like it's on fire. And it's too bad. It's a nice small town. It just has no jobs, no opportunities. People gotta live. And really you can't live in Kashiram until they get something else in there, because the farming's kind of dying out. Number 2, Halsita, Utah. Halchita, Hall & Oates. I'm not sure how you say it, but what I can say is it's bad. Statistically speaking, this place is not the type of place you want to stop for gas, much less live. AreaVibes.com has given the whole town F's on everything but cost of living. I guess it doesn't cost that much to live on a place that looks like the surface of Mars. In 2009, I went to Bryce Canyon and Arches, and during that trip, we drove through Hall & Oates or Halsita, and I thought to myself, wow, you really must like heat, dust, and broken down cars to live here. I distinctly remember this place because we were still laughing at the next town over's name when we came across this jewel of the desert. Hacienda is right next to Mexican Hat, Utah. I guess they couldn't recall the name for Mexican Hat, which is sombrero, when they named the town. Hall & Oates has about 550 residents and a horrible crime rate. Hacienda Halchita's crime rate is 78% higher than the national average. I wish someone would get online and pronounce this place properly so I could just copy it. And number 1, Marysvale, Utah. Marysvale is home to about 500 residents. Of those residents, 93% of them own their homes. When your average home sells for around $120K, it's kind of easy to do. Like Hall & Oates or Hacienda in the last one I did, this place gets torched by area vibes on everything but cost of living. There isn't much to this town. Like a lot of small towns in Utah, it exists because of hikers and farmers. They do a little farming around Marysville, and they have a couple of motels and inns that the outdoor types like to stay at before or after they go on one of the hiking trails. And like most every place in Utah, they have more than their fair share of churches. Marysville is remote and has horrible stats. Don't move here. You will cry yourself to sleep most nights. I promise you. Alright, so that's my top 10 worst towns in Utah. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you got some information out of it. Utah's a really nice state. Hands down, it is one of the better states we have. And they, like every place, they got some bad places. My channel, I just point those places out. Sorry if I offended anyone. That's just what I do. That's life. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.